Thank you. Well, good morning. We've just finished our daily COVID meeting with the Premier, where we received a range of very encouraging news for Queenslanders. While we have 27 new cases of COVID-19 in Queensland, 11 of those are overseas acquired on board a ship, the Pan Europe tanker, which is an LNG tanker, anchored off Gladstone. Most of the crew are vaccinated and will be cared for on board unless their condition changes. The 16 locally acquired cases are all directly linked to the Indooroopilly outbreak that we've been monitoring. 3 are students at Ironside State School, 9 are household contacts linked to Ironside State School, 1 is a teacher at Brisbane Grammar School, 2 are students at Brisbane Grammar, and 1 is a household contact linked to Brisbane Boys Grammar. So it's good, encouraging that all of the new cases again can be directly linked. Also encouraging is that the fact that of the cases reported today, only 3 were infectious in the community for 1 day and 1 was infectious in the community for 2 days. So 3 infectious on the 31st and 1 infectious on the 30th and 31st. The other 12 were in quarantine throughout the entire infectious period. So the fact that they are all linked and mostly were in quarantine is a positive development too. That brings our total number of cases in this outbreak to 79. We've had 1,886 cases in total, 122 are active. In the last 24 hours, Queenslanders outdid themselves again when it comes to getting tested for COVID-19. We did 52,351 tests, another record for Queensland, a fantastic result. What we have to do from here is to keep it up. That level of testing, that over 50,000 tests a day, gives the Chief Health Officer a chance to be confident that there isn't transmission other than what we've been able to identify, other than what we've been able to directly link to the Indooroopilly outbreak. Last night, I can advise Queenslanders that the Prime Minister phoned the Premier and they had a very productive conversation. The result of that conversation is that the Commonwealth will bring forward the delivery of some Pfizer vaccines that were allocated to Queensland for September and bring those forward to August. They're not additional vaccines, but they will allow for Queensland Health to do more vaccinations in August. So that's very good news, and it's great to be able to work collaboratively with the Commonwealth to be able to support Queenslanders. I want to speak now directly to the 7,766 people who are in home quarantine, subject to home quarantine directions. And I want to thank them for what they are doing for all of us. They are our first line of defence against this outbreak. They are doing a service to all Queenslanders. They have to stay home. They have to follow those quarantine directions. They can't even talk to their neighbours other than on the phone. Most of us in Brisbane now will know someone who's subject to these directions. And to everyone else in the southeast, I'd say if you do know someone who's subject to these directions, give them a call and see if they need anything. We all want to take care of you because you are taking care of us. Yesterday, we became aware of some delays with online ordering. This is a localised issue around the Indooroopilly area because of the sheer number of people in the inner western suburbs and western suburbs who are subject to those quarantine directions. We're working closely with Woolworths and Coles in particular to see what improvements can be made to ensure that we can be getting supplies to people in home quarantine. While they address those issues, though, we've also now engaged our Care Army and our NGOs to assist with the delivery of click and collect orders. People requiring delivery assistance in the short term should call the COVID Recovery Hotline 1800 173 349 or 134 COVID. So Queensland, we're very pleased to be able to report this encouraging progress, but the risk of this outbreak is still very real. There will be new contact sites loaded up today, and we'd urge people to check those. And otherwise, we just need to keep it up. We just need to keep that testing rate above 50,000. We need to keep staying at home. We need at least the next couple of days to see what happens with this outbreak. But what we know is that when we work together, we can do this.
So this is very encouraging news for Queensland, and the Southeast Corner have done an amazing job to get us to this position. So more than 50,000 tests in 2 days running. Let's keep that going so we can make sure that there aren't any other cases out there that we're unaware of. These cases related to the schools we know about, and all of those people have been doing a first-class job and staying at home. So today we saw a lot of close contacts in households positive. That is difficult, of course, for those individuals who now have COVID, but it's good for the rest of us because they tested negative when they went into quarantine and are now testing positive, so they are no risk at all to the community. And I thank every single one of those households that went into quarantine when they were asked to do so. So there are only those 4 cases today that were out and about during their infectious period, and between the 4 of them there were only 5 days that they were out in the community while infectious, and those 5 days all happened while we were in that lockdown, so there should have been minimal interaction. But of course we'll work with them and see where they were, and we'll put up those exposure venues on our website. So could everyone please check that you haven't been to one of those new exposure venues or one of the other exposure venues that are already on the site. So this is excellent. So the message going forward, please, any symptoms at all, anywhere in Queensland, but particularly in the Southeast Corner, come forward and get tested immediately. The sooner we find you, the sooner we can block down any chain of transmission. And for everyone else, if you're subject to those stay-at-home orders because you live in one of those 11 LGAs, please just stay at home. It's really important because, as you can see today, we have got those 5 days from today's cases, those 4 people who are out and about while infectious. But hopefully, given we had that lockdown in place, they didn't come into contact with too many people. But we know it only takes a few seconds and you can transmit this Delta variant. It is so transmissible. So please everyone, just till we get totally on top of this, stay at home if you possibly can. That's really, really important. But come out and get tested if you have any symptoms so we can find that first case in our next cluster going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Queensland. Tens of thousands of people came out and got tested over the last 24 hours. Please keep up this great work over the next few days. And of course, as the Deputy Premier said, can we thank those over 7,700 people who are home quarantining right now. Please, the only reason these people can leave home is for a test. No other reason. If they're a close contact and if they need any assistance whatsoever, they should ring our 134 COVID line. We have our Care Army out there to support people. And of course, if you know someone who is a close contact, as the Deputy Premier said, reach out by phone and see if there's any support you can give them. But of course, you cannot visit them or have any contact. We are very pleased with the news overnight around the vaccinations. So we welcome the 112,320 extra visors that are being brought forward from September. We've been advised that half of those vaccines will arrive next week, with the following half the following week. So we will immediately start planning for those extra doses and where we will focus the delivery of those extra vaccines. I also can advise that we've been working really hard with the Pharmacy Guild and can confirm that we are providing 22,600 doses of AstraZeneca to 113 pharmacies over the next couple of days. Those deliveries will start today. So we are providing AstraZeneca as well as the consumables that pharmacies need to start vaccinating in the next couple of days while they wait for the extra deliveries to arrive from the Commonwealth next week. So this means more pharmacies coming online earlier, and I think that's fantastic news, and I thank the pharmacies for working closely with us on that. Sadly, we have seen globally us kick over the 200 million mark of official positive confirmed cases of COVID. We've had 4.2 million deaths reported globally, and Indonesia overnight have reported 1,747 deaths. And sadly, we heard the news out of New South Wales yesterday. 2 deaths, including a 27-year-old who had only recently been married and had no underlying health conditions. This is really, really sad news. And it reminds us why what we are doing is so important. We know what we need to do. We know we can do it. Let's make sure we keep everyone in our community safe by staying at home, complying with the orders, and of course going out and getting tested. If you wake up this morning feeling unwell, you have any symptoms, go get a test today. Please don't wait another day or two. As soon as you have symptoms, go get tested. If we do all of this and we do it together, we will get through this. Thank you.
Yesterday saw us continue with our high visibility operations in the lockdown area. We intercepted nearly 7,000 vehicles, the breakdown of that being 3,390 at our borders, 1,349 heavy vehicles, and in particularly 2,197 in our interception points within the lockdown area. Of all those vehicles, we issued 13 PINs for persons that were, so penalty infringement notices that is, for persons who were not abiding by the lockdown restrictions. One of the numbers that does concern me a little, we still handed out 253 masks. This is one of the really simple things for our community. Please carry and wear your mask when you should. That is one of the primary things that we need to do to make sure that the virus doesn't spread. And for our officers to have to hand out 253 masks and also issue 12 penalty infringement notices for persons who refuse to wear masks, that's something we can definitely improve on. Overall, we issued 66 penalty infringement notices and we responded to 79 calls for service. We did inspect 205 businesses yesterday and all were compliant, I'm happy to say. Overall, we're very satisfied. We think that there has been improving compliance. We need to keep it going that way right through this lockdown, so please listen to the messaging that we are giving to you. I will also make a final comment that for persons in our community that think it's a good time to commit criminal activity, it is not. It is not an exempt purpose. I think everyone understands that. But for us, in intercepting twice persons committing drug offences, a second one involving 3 persons who had a significant sum of cash, drugs and weapons, and also not complying with the directions, obviously there's very serious consequences of that and people can expect that from our police. Thank you.
Dr. Young, what's and the acting Premier said it was encouraging news. What is the most encouraging about those overnight results?
The fact that we only had 5 days of people being infectious in the community. So between 4 people, they were out and about in the community for 5 days while infectious. That's the most encouraging part. And those 5 days were while we were in lockdown. So that is what you want to happen. So that's why you have a lockdown. First, to give you the chance to find everyone who might possibly be infectious and have them in quarantine. But second, for the period that they are out and about, there's far fewer other people.
Did you, at the start of this lockdown or even the last few days, expect us to be at this stage or worse?
No, I didn't.
Didn't what?
Expect us to be so far in front of the virus. This is fantastic news. This is Queenslanders coming together brilliantly and working with us. It doesn't mean we're through it yet. We've still got a long way to go, but we've done really, really, really well till now. So let's see how we go the next few days and see if we can lift those restrictions on Sunday. That would be extremely special to be able to do that on Sunday, but I'm so hopeful we
If the
can.
lockdown is lifted on Sunday, I'm assuming restrictions will be eased gradually, correct?
Oh, as we've always done before. So if we are able to lift those stay-at-home restrictions on Sunday, of course we'll be going and continuing with other restrictions. But that's if we can lift on Sunday. We've still got a while to go. We still need to do that 50,000 tests plus per day. We still need people, over 7,000 of them, to remain in quarantine and not leave for any reason, unless it's an absolute dire emergency. They've got a fire or a really significant emergency. We need everyone to play their part, but if everyone continues to keep playing their part as they have been, it is encouraging.
Dr. Young, for the children in hospital, how many are there and how sick are they?
There's good news that, yes, we do have a lot of children in hospital, but they're not particularly unwell, but they need to be in hospital. And thank goodness we have got the Children's Hospital, which is one of the best hospitals in Australia for children. So I'm very confident that we can manage them there, or in one of those other hospitals that have now had a lot of experience in managing COVID in children.
There was an alert last night about a Qantas flight from Brisbane to Cairns last Thursday, which I suspect the Marine pilot was on. How much concern is there about that for those on board and people in there?
No, there's no concern in that. We know people who are on a flight, so they'll all have been tested and managed.
With the children in the hospital, is it just precautionary to keep them in there? And what happens with their parents as well?
No, so it isn't precautionary. It is because they do need to be there. So we've implemented our hospital in the home program again, and where hospital can manage people in the home, and where the home is suitable and there's suitable carers available, then we are keeping children at home. But there are some children that we're needing to admit to hospital. They're reasonably well, they're not critically
well. What happens with their parents?
Their parents go in there with them.
And they have to quarantine on the way out, I'm guessing.
Yes, they'll have to quarantine for 14 days after they've last had exposure to the infectious case.
Dr. Young, what's your thoughts on this plan to use Suncorp Stadium potentially and the showgrounds as a vaccination sort of drive-through hub?
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of different venues, and once we get significant doses of vaccine, we'll be looking at how best to get it out there. I mean, it's fantastic news overnight that we're getting some of our vaccine earlier than we expected, so we'll be able to ramp up our testing a little bit. But then when we get those really big doses of vaccine, we'll be looking at how best to get them out there.
Dr. Young, how many patients are being cared for as part of the hospital at the moment?
At the moment, we've got 65 people out of our 122 active cases in hospital. Now, there's that new group on that ship off Gladstone, and at the moment we'll be managing them on that ship because most of them are actually vaccinated, and so they've got minimal symptoms. So we believe we can safely manage them on board that ship. Any that do need health care, we'll be removing from the ship, and we've got some beds lined up in Sunshine Coast University Hospital if they're needed for those crew.
Are there any ICU cases in those that are in the hospital?
We've got one person in ICU today, but it's the same gentleman who's been in ICU for a while now. He's not ventilated and he's stable.
Dr. Young, just for people in home quarantine, what about regional Queensland? So for those people who were in southeast Queensland and one of the 11 LGAs, they travel, say, up north somewhere and their entire households are locked down. Why is that needed? Why can't other housemates or other people in the household head out and go to work?
It's a very astute question. So I am just being absolutely cautious here because we know that the Delta variant can spread within 30 hours of first having exposure to it. So if you've got someone in a household who potentially could have Delta, we often find that the other people in that household are already infectious when we go in there. So the way to stop this getting out into our regions is that if someone's been in Brisbane in one of those 11 LGAs and then returns home elsewhere in Queensland, that everyone in their home, in that household, needs to go into quarantine. Of course, they can make decisions ahead of that and maybe go elsewhere and stay elsewhere, so that the person who goes back home is by themselves. They need to make those decisions and they can sort them out before the person returns.
The National Retail Association has been quite upset by your comments yesterday around online shopping, and can you just sort of respond to their criticism and just clarify what you mean exactly? Should people be shopping online?
Yeah, I believe at this point in time in Queensland that the least amount of movement in our community that we can possibly manage, the better. So that is for everything. So if we can stop people moving around for any reason at all, if it's not essential, then just delay it for a few days, and hopefully that means we might be able to get out of this on Sunday. If we get out of this on Sunday, it'll be the quickest response to any significant cluster anywhere.
Dr. Young, given the number of young people that are caught up in this outbreak, are you looking at potentially extending the mask mandate to younger school students?
Another astute question, thank you for that. Yeah, we are looking at what we can do. So we're looking around the world, what other countries have done. Most places only require masks from the age of 12, and that's what we've always done here in Queensland. But we're looking if it's possible to do it for younger. For a start, we'll have to look at different masks. I mean, these masks wouldn't be any use because they're too big. So there's a whole range of things that we need to look at before we could do it. But yes, we're definitely looking at it.
Do you have the ages of the 16 cases today?
No, but they're mainly adults. They're mainly household members. But no, I don't have their ages yet. I'll get that later. So we only get all of our data at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then rapidly look at what additional information we can get, because I think it's important we get it as quickly as we can. But it means we don't have all those details yet. But we'll be able to, by the end of today, put it out in a press statement.
Do you have the name of the ship?
Yes, I do. If you don't mind me going and looking it up. I should remember it. It's the Pan Europe. It's an LNG tanker, and it's off the port of Gladstone.
Deputy Premier, at what point would you like a decision to be made in terms of whether this lockdown is extended or not? What day would you like that decision to be made?
Look, as we always have, we'll endeavour to make the decision as soon as we can based on the information that's to hand, but it's difficult to say at this stage what the next few days will look like, and so we'll need to see those play out before we can advise Queenslanders what the arrangements will be beyond Sunday.
If the lockdown does continue, will there be more support for businesses?
Look, I don't want to get into kind of hypotheticals about where we will head from there. My absolute focus is on doing what we need to do today and tomorrow and Saturday to hopefully be able to lift the lockdown on Sunday. That's the goal right now.
But businesses, many of them are really concerned about surviving that long, especially with, they say $5,000. Many for them it won't touch the sides, especially if it's not coming for 2 weeks and the lockdown is extended and there's advice to not do online shopping. Surely the businesses, they do need more support, don't they?
Yeah, look, clearly we understand what impact this is having. We're in constant contact with our business community. It's just difficult to predict what the situation beyond Sunday will be from where we are right now, and so we just need to do everything that we can these next couple of days to give us the best possible chance of lifting, of at least easing some restrictions from Sunday, but it's too early to be able to predict whether that will be the case.
Any update on hand to the situation there with contact tracing after that separate Delta case?
We haven't had any other, we haven't had any more positive cases in Cairns, which is very reassuring, and we're just working through all the contacts.
Mike Webb, the Auslan interpreter, is quarantining at home. Is there any risk to you given yesterday's presser? Or?
No, because we're outside. And this is awful outside, it's so cold. I don't know about all of you, I'm freezing. But anyway, no, I'm sorry. He's not a confirmed case, he's a contact. So, of course, he's already been tested, and I believe he's having a second test and he's fine. And we'll just work through if there are any risks there. But no, I'm not concerned. We are outside.
And are you able to clarify the change with, I guess, the hospitals in the home type? What triggered that? Was it the
risk or the capacity of the
Sorry, I
hospitals?
couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Are you able to explain the change with the bringing back hospitals and the home care?
Yes.
And what triggered that?
Really, it's because most of these children are actually very well. And so there's really no need for them to be in hospital. So, and a lot of these cases are children. And children have got parents. So as long as the parents are comfortable and they're happy to manage it, and a lot of the parents very sensibly just went, look, we can look after our children. And a lot of these parents are doctors. So it was just sensible to work through it, and there are a lot. So we now have 122 cases, and if they don't need to be in hospital, then it makes sense for them to be at home. My concern has always been about trying to manage people who are confirmed cases in hotel quarantine. That has always been my concern, because we know that hotels are not good at stopping spread. I mean, they're pretty good, but we've seen time and time again another case, throughout the country in a hotel. So I've always wanted to pull them out of hotels. But these people have already been exposed. They've been in their home. We know they're at high risk of becoming infected. So they're already there and they can look after their children.
We've seen the virus escape hotel quarantine. Are there any concerns about home care? Is anyone in an apartment block, for example?
No, that's why we work through with these individuals, and we look at every single case as an individual case and work out what the risks are. Yes, so it's not a blanket approval that everyone gets managed in their home. It's a very nuanced process.
Is there any more detail on that positive case that visited the Gold Coast, and also on the Gold Coast and other regions? If they continue to have no cases, even if the lockdown here in Brisbane has to continue because of that Indooroopilly cluster, would it be possible to perhaps even lift the lockdown in some of those other areas if they continue to have no cases on Sunday?
Yeah, a very important point, and something that we always look at.
And is there any update on the Gold Coast case at all?
Well, only that they were down there and the venues are up. So if anyone's been to any of those venues, it's really important they come forward.
Just on the hotel quarantine stuff as well, have you looked at any of the CCTV in that hotel where the 2 original cases came from?
And we haven't found anything that triggers a concern. We just know that it's so easy to transmit Delta.
Dr. Ian, can I just check on the numbers? So the 65 out of 122 cases. So the 65 there in hospital? Or?
Yeah, there are 65 of those 122 in hospital, and there are 20 formerly in hospital in the home. And then remember, there's 27 cases that have only just come in this morning. So if we try and add all those up.
The Deputy Premier, just on another matter, Les Walker, does the government retain confidence in Les Walker?
I think the Premier has been very, very clear that she's disappointed that he has found himself in this kind of situation. Obviously, everyone, even politicians, are entitled to be considered innocent until proven guilty. There is a court process underway, and I'm not going to comment beyond that. We need to let that play its course.
Okay. Thanks all.
Thank you.